Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast. My name is Paul Klingon, and I am your host. I left a career at Amazon in 2018 to help people live healthier lives. Mindful Muscle is the balance between pushing harder to hit your fitness goals while also being able to slow down. We'll talk all things training, nutrition, and recovery, while also highlighting the importance of mindfulness, slowing down, and taking care of mental health and performance. You'll hear from doctors, authors, athletes, coaches, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in the health and wellness space. And you'll hear from me as an athlete, trainer, nutrition, and personal performance coach as I share my thoughts and experiences that are helping my clients and myself get better each and every day. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast. My name is Paul Klingon. I am your host. We got less than a week till summer. We're almost there. I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast, but I'm actually going to be headed down to San Diego for July, August, September. Girlfriend and I are just taking some time to move and spend a little bit of time in the sun. And I'm super excited because it is going to allow me to focus solely on online coaching and the nutrition coaching and lifestyle coaching and the programming that I've been doing for a lot of people. But it's going to basically make me go all in on that, which is a big change since I've been personal training for a while. And I love doing that. But this is something that I've wanted to dedicate more time to and really commit 100% to. And so a lot of what this podcast that you're about to listen to is going to be about is one of the approaches that I will take with clients that have really struggled being in a low-calorie diet and have tried yo-yo dieting and are working really hard, and they're working out maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 times a week, and they're like, man, why am I not seeing results? A lot of times they'll be really stressed in the jobs that they have. A lot of times they'll have a history of eating really low calories. And so this podcast is for you if you feel like you've done all of this dieting work with very little to show for it, and anything you do that would be quote unquote slipping up causes you to put on weight. And first thing I'd say is I totally empathize with you and understand how that can be super frustrating, because all of social media tells you, not just social media, but the internet and diet culture and whatnot just tells you, like, hey, whatever you do, just exercise more, eat less. That's all you got to do. Just lose weight, just cut calories. Eat this really low calorie diet. Do keto, do paleo, do Whole30. There's so much information out there, and it's like, whoa, overload. And this topic of reverse dieting is one that is going to gain more traction as more and more people understand the science and apply and understand why people are eating 1,200 calories and not losing weight. And the first thing you got to understand is that the body, the metabolism specifically, which is every cell in the body, and every cell makes every organ comprises of how the body functions. Your metabolism is how well all that functions together. So the processes that keep you alive really is part of the metabolism. So I'll dive into the basal metabolic rate, which is essentially what you need to keep the lights on from a energy standpoint. I'll get all your main organs and bodily functions working. Then you have your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your thermic effect of food, and your exercise activity thermogenesis. So all those things together add up to be your total daily energy expenditure, which is what your metabolism is. Now that number is always moving, so that's where people get confused. And I'll dive into that a little bit in terms of why calories in, calories out is in a way a moving target. But first, I want to just kind of set the stage. So obviously, if you are trying to lose weight, if you're trying to get in better shape, I would say the goal most of the time is to lose weight. And it's usually done through finding some sort of calorie deficit via a structured diet like a keto, like a paleo, like a Whole30, even the carnivore diet. These diets aren't magic. No one is, having some sort of leg up on the other with some proprietary technology. At the end of the day, they cut out foods that are highly palatable, meaning they're really easy to overeat. And when you cut them out, it's easy to find that calorie deficit, at least in the short term, on the diet that you're on. They also might have specific rules as to, when you can eat, when you can't eat, and all these are designed, like intermittent fasting is a good example of that. All these are designed to put you in a calorie deficit. End of story. Keto cuts out carbs. There's a lot of really good food that have carbs in them. That doesn't mean carbs are bad, but if you cut out Thai food, pizza, potato chips, beer, wine, maple bars, cookies, right? All these things, they have carbs in them, yes. They also have fats in them. Some of them also have proteins in them. But if you cut out all those foods, well then yeah, you'll probably eat a little bit less. You're cutting out 90% of what people eat, right? You're also cutting out a lot of water weight because as muscle gets pulled, or as carbohydrates get pulled into the muscle, you're getting muscle glycogen, which binds with water. So when you deplete the body and the muscle of muscle glycogen, well, now there's no water to bind to it. And so you drop a lot of water weight initially. So people will be like, oh, I lost 8 pounds the first 3 days. You didn't lose 8 pounds. Hate to break it to you. You lost a lot of water. Maybe you lost a little bit of fat. But in these kind of diets too, it's usually paired with a lot of excessive cardio. So you're also probably breaking down muscle tissue, which is unfortunate because the muscle tissue is it's like gold. You need it. You got to have it. So anyway, people starting these diets, it's in an attempt to lose weight. One thing that I think would help a lot of people in terms of articulating like what a diet is, I like to use an example. A bear has the diet of fish and berries and maybe deer and rabbit, right? The diet is what you eat. So if a bear wanted to gain weight, it would eat more of its diet. If it wanted to lose weight, it would eat less of its diet. Sometimes it's not controlled, right? Sometimes poachers are shooting deer, or they're hunting. This is now way outside of my understanding, but basically, what the bear eats is the bear's diet. So what you got to understand, listening to this, is your diet is what you eat. Going into a diet is the act of going into a calorie deficit. And I say this because if what you eat stays consistent and you have a consistent diet and you're not changing the entire structure of where you're getting your foods from and what foods you're allowed to eat and what foods you're not to eat, then you're able to manipulate how much of it you have and how much of it you don't have. And everything's on the table. Versus if you go to a specific diet that has a specific camp that is very rigid and structured, you are now saying, I can't have those foods. I can have these foods. That's like a bear saying, all right, I can no longer have berries, but I can have deer. It's like, no, you can have the entire spectrum. It's the food quantity that is going to put you in trouble because it is being overweight and having the different medical conditions that are associated with obesity that's unhealthy. It's not necessarily the food. Anyway, so diving back into this a little bit, before I jump into dieting, one of the big problems, or I guess before I jump into reverse dieting and why it's so valuable and so important, is less than 20% of people who lose at least 10% of their body weight are able to maintain it for a single year. So you're 180 pounds, you lose 18 pounds, you're not going to be able to less than 20% of people maintain that for a single year. And that's unfortunate. And that's where you'll get a lot of people being like, don't diet. What's the point of dieting? The point of dieting is to improve your life so you can go and do the things that you want to do, amplify the different areas of your life so that your health is not a liability. That's the point of dieting. And because there is such this issue, the marketing of diets to lose weight is embedded in society. It's in TV. It's in books, magazines, social media, blogs. There's no doubt your friend is trying to sell you on, whatever diet that they're on. So there's diet advice everywhere. Everyone's trying to be thinner. Everyone wants to be leaner. Everyone wants to look like their favorite superhero, their model, or whatever it is that they want to look like. And marketers know this. Companies know this. Pharmaceutical companies know this. Big, giant conglomerates know this. There's a ton of money to be made selling diets. And I was pulling research for this podcast, and what's crazy is America's the 12th most obese country in the world. I can't remember exactly what year it is, so maybe we've dropped to 13th or 14th, or maybe we're up at 10th. Neither of which are good. The only countries we're beating, I can't even name. We're looking at Samoa. We're looking at the Micronesia. Some of these I've never even heard of before. Nauru, Nauru. You got the Cook Islands. You got Tonga, Kiribati, Kuwait, and here we are at 12, 36.2%. It's over 1 in 3. That's a lot, right? So obviously we have this big epidemic in America, and if you're listening to this outside of America, it's, something to be addressed across a spectrum of countries. There are definitely countries that have a better healthcare system than America, but America's pretty trash. I think that's fair to say. So anyway, naturally, with a big market, a lot of marketing is going to be geared towards helping people with that common problem. But what's not so common and what's not sexy, and what this podcast is about, is honestly not sexy because it's a long-term sustainable approach that's not going to actually get you what you want. But what's not common is the marketing of restoring metabolic health, getting your biofeedback in check. And if you're dying to lose weight, the idea of not losing weight, focusing on sleep, energy levels, cravings, training performance, mood, sexual libido, like all these things, like that's not sexy. That's the longer route. It's the more sustainable route. And when I say biofeedback, those are the things I mean. Sleep, hunger, energy, mood, libido, menstrual cycle, like all these things, that is what a normal body has and does in homeostasis. When you don't have that, and that's not balanced, and it doesn't have a chance to recover, that's not health, right? And so we're chasing this diet, we're chasing losing weight, but we're not looking at that. That's what I'll look at when I'm coaching people, and what I'm looking at when I'm being coached as well. But as a whole, the fitness industry, nutrition, whatever, social media, it's not talked about. It's starting to be talked about a little bit more, but it certainly doesn't sell. But the reason why it's so valuable is because that's the only way to get out of that hole of being 1,200 calories, 1,300 calories, 1,400 calories. What do you do when your body adapts to the really low calorie threshold that you've been feeding it for 10 years? That 1,400 calories that when you were 24, 25 was a calorie deficit, helped you lose weight. That's your good and trusty faithful. If I go back to that, then I'll lose weight. Your body's eventually going to adapt because it wants to find homeostasis. When you drop the body into a big enough deficit, or you put the body into a big enough surplus, both those things are not things that the body wants. It's causing it to have to change and adapt. And eventually, if you ask it to adapt, it will, but you're going to get some dysfunction with the cells, with the body, with the metabolism, and how everything works together. So all this dieting is ultimately wreaking havoc on your health, and it's nearly impossible to enjoy the foods and events that you really like, because 1,400 calories is not a lot of calories. Now, when you add on a wedding, when you add on a bachelor party or bachelorette party, when you add on, getting brunch with your friends, getting drinks with your friends, there's not a lot of space for that. And you might be really good for 6 days. 6 days, you're dialed in. You hit 1,200 calories for 6 days. That's supposed to be weight loss. But then willpower it gets overridden by biology. Biology is always going to override. You might be able to willpower for a week, 2 weeks, but the body gets what the body needs one way or another. And so then what was a 1,200 calorie 6 days, you won 6 out of 7 days, but that 7th day, boom, 4,000 calories. That puts you at what, I'll do quick math, let's say just 2,000 calorie surplus over the course of a few months. Boom, you put on 5 pounds, despite being 6 out of 7 for those entire 4 months. And so after you diet, maybe, and we'll go over the different types of people that can benefit from this, but let's say you do diet and you do successfully lose the weight you want, or a big chunk of weight that you want to lose. What do you do after that? Right? Most people they lose the weight, they go right back to how they're eating. They get down to that 1,500, lose weight there, and then boom, I'll go back to that 2,500 calorie threshold. Well, that's now 1,000 calorie surplus. Yeah, you're going to put on the weight. The reverse diet is the diet after the diet. Reverse diet's like putting the car in reverse so that you can get out of the ditch that you've put yourself in, right? Because you're just spinning your wheels going forward. Zzz, zzz. Hopefully that sounds good as it comes through the podcast, but you can picture a car in a ditch, or maybe you've been stuck in mud, or you've been stuck in snow, and you're just spinning those wheels, getting deeper, 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 more frustrated, not going anywhere. In reality, you just need to go back. You need to go back one step so you can go forward 5. And the frustration of feeling like you're always dieting and not seeing results, this is what we're talking about. It's down-regulating your metabolism. Your metabolism adapts to that lower calorie threshold, and then where do you go from there? It's going to be really common. You're going to see it a ton in the bodybuilding, the physique competition landscape, people that are getting ready for photo shoots. It's something I'm about to go through. I'm about a week away from a photo shoot. I'm at about 1,900 calories a day, when I was in a lean gain phase, I was at 3,700 calories a day. So that's what it took me to put on weight and put on muscle. And then as I get really lean and get, down to these last little tenths of a tenth, 1,900 calories, I'm going to have to reverse diet because I don't want to eat 1,900 calories for the rest of my life. I want to be able to have 2,700 calories and maintain the weight that I'm at or close to and not have a huge bounce back. So let's dive into what a reverse diet is. A reverse diet is the strategy of increasing calories and energy expenditure while limiting unnecessary or unwanted fat gain. So I'm pulling that from Lane Norton and Holly Baxter. Lane Norton, Holly Baxter's book, Complete Guide to Reverse Dieting. And you can check that book out. I'll have the link to that in the show notes. But a reverse diet is the strategy of increasing calories, energy expenditure while limiting unnecessary or unwanted fat gain. So in other words, you are making the body adapt to a higher calorie intake. You are now going the reverse direction of a diet, and you are setting that threshold just high enough to where you don't add weight. The metabolism's able to adapt to that. And I'll dive into the different percentages that you'd look for in terms of gain to know if it's conservative or aggressive or whatnot. But like I said, it's really common in the fitness, the bodybuilding world where you get super lean and you need to have a way and a plan to back out of that. And so obviously the people that get on stage, people that get really lean for photo shoots, that's not sustainable. They don't look like that year round. If you think that they do, you're wrong. And when they do look like that, odds are their biofeedback, how they feel, their energy, all the normal functions that a human would have are, less than ideal. But in order to get to that level of leanness, they do need to go to a really low level of calories. So when you're losing weight, you're creating that adaptation that allows the body to drop the pounds, right? The fat cells are less full, but as that's happening, individuals are getting leaner, the nervous system is adapting, you're having this protective mechanism within the brain and the body that's like, hey, we need to hold on to, as much as we can so that we can make sure that the heart beats, so that the liver does its job. Your hormones are going to be changing as all this is happening. Fat cells, like I mentioned, are adapting. Like I said, the metabolism wants homeostasis, but the more the body gets pulled out of that, and the more drastic, the more harmful those adaptations are going to become. And so, like I said, reverse diets are an attempt to undo those adaptations, but it's not the same as bulking. And I want to address that just in case anyone's like, well, so are we just trying to get big? Are we trying to get jacked? The difference is in a bulk where you're trying to build muscle, the goal is muscle growth while minimizing fat. You have expected weight gain, while in a reverse diet, the goal is to mitigate weight gain. And for a good portion of what you're focused on is how does the biofeedback look? Like, are we restoring homeostasis? So you're looking at, all right, are we able to maintain weight? Are, sleep, hunger, energy, mood, cravings, all that stuff getting better? Are calories increasing? In a bulk, you're mostly just concerned, all right, is this a desirable amount of rate of gain while also building muscle, looking at things like performance? So there's a lot of overlap, don't get me wrong, but what you're focused on is just a little bit different. So it's the process of really restoring the metabolism and increasing total daily energy expenditure so that when you do have another attempt at weight loss, that limbo bar you have to get underneath is 25 or 2,200 calories versus 1,400 calories. You can't get under 1,400 calories, at least not consistently. It's too low of a limbo bar. But if you get it up higher, you can get up underneath that number and not feel like you got to, do some sort of Cirque du Soleil to get under that really low limbo bar 2 feet off of the ground. So I've thrown around TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, around just a little bit. And I talked about at the beginning of the podcast what that is. Your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, is what really your full metabolism is. It's what your body burns on the calories outside of calories in, calories out. It's broken into 4 categories. So your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, is going to be roughly 60 to 70% of your daily energy expenditure. And that's the calories that your body burns to keep the lights on. If you were to lay in bed, you did nothing else other than just sleep, your body's burning calories just to get the heart pumping, the brain's doing brain things, got to burn calories at rest. NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is going to be anywhere from 15 upwards to 25% of your daily energy expenditure, and it's everything that you do outside of laying in bed that is an exercise. So think of talking, walking, blinking, doing your laundry. I would even put sex down in there. I don't think it's exercise activity. I could be wrong, but anyway, it's any movement outside of just laying in bed. Then you have thermic effect of food, accounts for roughly 10% of your calories burnt. So as you take in energy, as you digest food, it takes energy to break down those nutrients and for the body to extract those nutrients from the food you eat. So protein is going to require 20 to 30% more energy to break down and extract the nutrients than carbs, 5 to 15%, fats 0 to 3%. So this is diet-induced thermogenesis. You can think of this as, let's say you got a big dump near your house, and this is where all the trash goes and gets dumped. And for the most part, the machines can break down plastic. If you got to break down some wood, maybe it takes a little bit more energy. But then you're like, all right, we're dumping concrete. This thing needs to really rev up to break down that concrete. If you're thinking of like a trash compactor, that's kind of what's happening with the body, where it's like, oh man, we got protein. Let's rev up the engines. It's going to take a little bit more torque, a little bit more horsepower to break down that protein. So that's one of many reasons why protein is so valuable to keep high in a diet. Last but not least, you have EAT. So exercise activity thermogenesis, which is going to account for 5 to 10% of calories burnt. It's going to be intentional workout activities like weightlifting, running, cycling, swimming, any sports you're playing. And this is where a lot of people get kind of tripped up, because it's always about, oh, what does my Apple Watch say? How many calories did I burn doing my workout? That's how I know I had a good workout day. Keep in mind, just to move, that's your NEAT, there's calories being burnt there. So that's walking in between sets maybe. Just to exist and sit on that bench, that's calories right there. The additional calories being burnt is EAT, right? So think about laying there on the ground, on the floor, just taking a nap, which that would be great, but no one ever does. You're burning calories in the gym. You could lay on the floor for the entire workout and be like, great, burn 100 calories, nice workout. Then there's maybe moving around. You're walking around the gym, right? You're burning more calories than you would at rest. The additional high heart rate, lifting weights, whatnot, it's 5 to 10%. So where people get all worried about their metabolism, BMR, 60 to 70%. NEAT is the biggest opportunity for people, and this is the biggest thing that fell off during COVID. This is the biggest thing that fell off from when you were in college or when you were in your mid-20s to where you're at now. Look at the lifestyle you had then and the one you have now. In college, you wake up, you walk uphill both ways to class, you're carrying a backpack, you're running around with your friends, then you go to a intramural sport, then you walk across campus to get your favorite ice cream, and then you're going to the gym after that. Then, yeah, you go and have some pizza and party till 2 a.m., but you're dancing around, moving around till 2 a.m. Stress is really low. You're able to sleep a little bit more. Flip that over now to where you're 32. Maybe you got kids. Maybe you got more bill. Obviously, you got more bills to pay, but you got bigger bills to pay. You wake up, sit down in your seat. If you're working from home, you get in your car, and you sit there as you drive to work. Then you go and sit at your desk. Maybe you walk 20 minutes to go pick up your Subway sandwich, but then you're back down sitting. Then you wake up. Or not, you don't wake up. You get up from work. Maybe you're waking up from work. You get up from work, and you go work out for an hour. You put in a really good hard workout for an hour. You move your body for an hour. It's a really good workout. Then you go sit on the couch, watch Netflix, and you go to bed. Which one sounds like it has more movement? Which one sounds like it burns more calories, right? That's where NEAT comes in. That's where a higher metabolism is going to be seen with someone who is moving around more than someone who is really working out really hard for just 1 hour. And then obviously from a nutritional standpoint, you can make a big adjustment with the TEF. So if you want to dive into this at all, you can go to elementalcoachingproject.com. I got a blog that breaks down a visual of this so you can see it and learn a little bit more about TDEE, but this is everything that makes up the metabolism. And for people that would benefit from a reverse diet, this is something that has down-regulated a lot. When you look at basal metabolic rate, so BMR, it's impacted by the size of a human. So bigger humans require more energy to keep the engine running. Think about an F-350 versus a Ford Ranger. F-350 has a bigger chassis, has more mass. It's going to require more gas to move it. So that's going to be a less fuel efficient machine. You become more fuel efficient the smaller you get. Hopefully that makes sense. A smaller human requires less calories to operate that machine. Thermic effect of food, as I mentioned, is based on the food you eat. So if you're having a higher protein diet, boom, a little bit of extra calories burned there. NEAT is going to slow down when calories are sparse. So I mentioned I'm getting ready for a shoot. I'm very lethargic, talking really slow for the most part, really slow to go and do anything. But when calories are abundant, your NEAT is going to subconsciously explode. All of a sudden you're fidgeting, you're moving around, you want to go for a walk. And this is all subconscious, and a lot of people don't take into account this when they are dieting or when they do increase calories and they're like, calories in, calories out doesn't work. It does work. You just don't realize that your brain is like a parasite. Like those calories are coming in and it's wiring you almost like a robot and saying, hey, let's go move a little bit more. We have more energy. Let's go make things happen, right? So think about when you have a little bit of money coming in, you're going to be a little bit more frugal when money's tight. But when money's rolling in, you got that cash, you're going to be more frivolous with it. That's kind of how your brain and body is when it has excess calories and when it has very little calories. Eat, so exercise, activity, thermogenesis. It's also going to be impacted by the size of a human. Getting a 200-pound man to run or do burpees is going to require a lot more calories than a 150-pound man. And how hard you work, obviously, is going to increase the energy expenditure as well. Sprinting 100 meters is going to require a lot more energy than, slowly jogging 100 meters. So with all that said, you might be thinking, I'm starting to see different things that happen metabolically from a total daily energy extender, from a TDEE standpoint. And maybe even now you're just like, oh, wow, these are some adjustments that I can make. Maybe you've noticed that your energy gets really low and you diet and you find yourself laying on the couch more. Maybe you've noticed a big body composition change when you introduced a higher protein diet. That's one of the biggest changes that my clients see when they make that shift and they start losing inches and they start feeling more full and having more energy. It's that higher protein diet that's helping them get there. So who's this for, right? Maybe you're listening, you're like, this is interesting, but is it for me? I don't know, Paul, you tell me. That's why I listen to the podcast, and I appreciate that. So there's several populations that are going to benefit from this, and it'll be at different stages in their weight loss journey. Depending on the group you're in, the approach is going to be different. Depending on your mindset, the approach is going to be different. So priority of a reverse diet is going to depend on where your biofeedback is, relationship with food, your consistency with training and tracking accurately. I talked a little bit earlier about different degrees to intensity with the reverse diet. So you have conservative, moderate, and aggressive. Conservative, you're looking to gain less than 0.2% of your body weight a week. You are very concerned, or you would ideally not to let any more fat than necessary be put on. You want to maintain the physique that you've worked to build and create as much as possible. Then you have moderate, 0.5%, and then you have aggressive, 0.8%. Someone that is more inclined for aggressive is someone that went really low for a short period of time for something like a photo shoot. So I would put myself in this category. I'll be pretty aggressive about getting myself out of how I'm feeling right now because it's not fun. And once I hit that kind of peak, and think of peaking from an aesthetic standpoint as you do a lot of work and have a lot of buildup for a marathon. Once you hit that marathon, you want everything to peak at that point. And then there's a pretty big drop off in terms of how much you're running, how much energy you need, and whatnot. So when you have something like a photo shoot or magazine cover, and if you're listening to this, you probably don't have a magazine cover. Maybe you've done bodybuilding or physique competitions, but it could be something as simple as like your wedding. And you want to get really lean for your wedding. And come post-wedding, like you want to get back to feeling good. And so, again, these approaches are going to change, but there's 5 different types of people that are going to benefit from this. So, number 1, you lost the weight that you wanted to, but now you're currently at a level of calories that isn't sustainable. So you lost the weight you wanted, but that ended you at 1,500 calories. If you go back to eating how you were pre-diet, maybe 3 months ago, you're going to put some of the weight back on, probably more than you want to. So a conservative approach to gaining here is generally a good idea. So 0.5%, give or take. It's going to be a little bit of a longer duration. The length of the diet phase will depend until you reach, it depends on the person, but 80% of your previous maintenance calories. So if we start working together and you're at 2,500 calories and we get you to 2,250, 2,300, but you're at 20, 30 pounds lighter, like that's a win. You got a smaller rig, you're going to have less calories that you need. You're going to obviously still need to remain diligent with tracking habits. Obviously, we want to restore a healthy relationship with food. If there was any, negative adaptations mentally to just I can't have that, that's going to throw me off. I want to get you back to a spot to where you can look at food and not freak out. So number 2, this is going to be the person that has dieted down to an extreme level of leanness. So looking at, again, trying to peak aesthetically for bodybuilding, magazine, photo shoot, whatnot. And you need to get your metabolism and hormones to recover by adding more body fat. So you're going to take an aggressive approach. So 0.8% of your body weight a week. This is going to be a shorter duration. You want to get it back up, recovered, 4 to 6 weeks, as quick as possible. You can definitely transition to a little bit slower as you approach, the maintenance that you want and once biofeedback restores. But then you also want to make sure, too, that healthy relationship with food is pulled back in. Number 3, and this is probably the most common one that I see, probably the most common one in society, unfortunately. And so fat loss goal is not achieved. You've been, if you listen to my podcast, and maybe it wasn't a podcast, but basically I have this analogy where if you try and go on a road trip, ideally you're going to sleep really well. You got all your foods, you got all your snacks, you fill up your gas tank, you got your friends in the car, you got a good playlist, right? You're good. You're ready to go 300, 400 mile road trip. So many people are trying to go on this fat loss journey with $5 in the tank, a Slim Jim for a snack, and nothing else. The car is falling apart, right? And so many people are trying to go into this fat loss phase, and they keep doing it over and over. It goes for 3 weeks, falls apart, and this will happen for years. Yo-yo dieting, right? So it's really common with yo-yo dieters, always trying to lose weight, going to be frustrated. They're not losing weight on lower calories. And so a conservative approach and really making sure that you're not adding any more weight than necessary, it's going to be ideal with this population because there's likely a fear of gaining weight because there's been such an effort to lose weight. It's going to be a longer duration. And this is why I preface this entire podcast with losing weight being sexy and the marketing associated with it, because selling this approach is much harder. It's much healthier. It is what's going to get you to where you want to get. But when someone wants or needs a change right away, it's really hard to sell. If you're listening to this and you're like, man, yeah, I don't want to spend 6 months not losing weight. That sounds terrible. Well, how's 6 years of being really frustrated and then being up heavier than you were 6 years ago, right? And that's kind of what you're looking at. So when you reach a level of calories that you can sustainably create a deficit from and you restore a healthy relationship with food, then you can go back and do a diet. But that's going to take some time. You need to prioritize restoring healthy sleep habits, managing stress better, having higher craving levels, hunger levels. You need to practice better tracking habits that might be disrupting the progress that you're making or not making. So really there's a lot of work to do, and some people are great at it. Some people need a little bit more time. But this population is generally pretty stressed. There will typically be a lot of people, when I look at the logo for Elemental Coaching Project and why I shifted everything to this, there's a lot of people that are just using fire. And no one wants to use water. Everyone wants to train really hard. Everyone wants to go really hard in the diet phase. No one wants to recover. No one wants to take a day off. Don't get me wrong. People do want to, and people do appreciate it. But I'll get a lot of people that are shake and quiver at the idea of staying still for a moment, that's a sign that that's something you need to do. Take a break, recover from your dieting phase. Dieting is a stressor. So take time to recover from the damaging that diet has done. Take time to recover from the damage that training has done. It's not bad damage, but your body needs time to heal, adapt, and restore and get you better so when you come back the next time. Number 4, no fat loss goal, but you do want to set yourself up to have a higher metabolism, maybe for a future cut, or maybe you're just like, hey, I would love to be able to eat 3,000 calories, focus on performance, and not really worry about my, putting on extra weight. So conservative, moderate approach here, knowing that the population is definitely at a better starting spot. Moderate duration, it's going to be dictated on the metabolic capacity as they reach certain goals. And then this is very closely, I would say more than so than any, going to tie to doing a lean bulk. And with this, and with all of this, keep in mind this is a reverse diet. You are very much training for hypertrophy, training for building muscle, strength training during this time. So this number 4, no fat loss goal, they want to prep their metabolism for a future cut. It's a perfect time to focus on hypertrophy and strength. Absolutely perfect time. Number 5, they lost a good chunk of weight, but they still got work to go. So if you got 80 pounds to lose, going 12 months straight in a deficit, it's going to be really tough. You're going to run into a lot of problems if you just go pedal to the metal the entire time. So taking some time to be in maintenance, reverse diet back up a little bit, then go back down. Think of it as like someone who's scuba diving. You go down underwater, come back up, take a sip of air, back down underwater. And so conservative approach so that the next fat loss phase isn't 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Going to be a moderate duration dictated again when the metabolism reaches a level to where you're ready to diet again. And then again, this is a great candidate to focus on building muscle. And keep in mind with all this, building muscle is going to build your muscle mass, which is going to build your mass, which is going to increase how many calories you burn throughout the day. Right, and so this is the whole concept of this is having seasons and having periods with your nutrition and with your training so that they work well together. Spending different times in different seasons, fat loss phase, maintenance phase, gaining phase, reverse diet phase. It's going to allow you for your nutrition and your training to adapt to your life rather than having your life adapt to your training and nutrition, right? So everyone wants a lifestyle that works for them or a fitness plan that works for them. Well, this is how you create that. There's going to be windows of the year when a fat loss phase is so much harder. Wedding season, holiday, busy travel. If you're traveling 12 weekends out of 13 for work, great time to be in a maintenance phase. Great time to be in a building phase because you're probably going to dinner 4 nights a week with colleagues, and that's going to be really tough. Having a vacation, a 1-2 week vacation, great time to take a diet break. Just maintain, get back, feel a little bit better, recovered. Great time to take a deload from a training standpoint, right? That's all stuff you can plan out and look ahead, because when you have a 12-month plan rather than I need results in 12 days, right? Now you have a little bit more flexibility in that. But dieting for 12 months straight, it's a recipe for disaster. You got to have different seasons to it. Athletes have the off season, the preseason, the specific in season, right? That's when they're peaking, and then they got the postseason. Then you got farmers. They have planting, growing, harvesting, resting, health and fitness. Maybe you're cutting. Maybe you're just maintaining. Maintaining's great. Then maybe you're just gaining. Maybe it's a reverse diet. Maybe you're trying to build muscle. Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe you're resting. Maybe you're taking 2 weeks off and just recharging, right? That's allowed too. That's good. It's part of the recovery. And so although reverse dieting, I'll wrap up this podcast and say it might not be the most fun part of the year, it's definitely crucial to ensure that the season overall is successful. And so that's really a big background on reverse dieting. There's a lot of nuance, and I'll continue to release content around how I'm doing this with clients. I've had several clients go through this, and I'll be uploading case studies on what they did, how we did it, their approach, our approach, and how it set them up for a cutting phase to where they've upregulated their metabolism. They're eating higher calories, they have more energy, they're training and performing better, and then when we go to actually put them in a deficit, they're losing weight where they weren't before. So a lot of cool things to continue to come, especially as, with the rebrand, new content, more content. Super excited to continue to talk about this. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you went to iTunes, left a 5-star rating and review. Help me grow the podcast, help me reach more people. I'll continue to have guests on, but I'll also continue to have different topics where I come on and talk about different topics around Q&A from what people in the Facebook group or clients are asking about. If you're interested in asking a question for the Q&A, you can reach out to me, Paul_Klingen on social media. I'll do Q&As throughout the week, and I'll also do Q&As on the Facebook page. So anytime you have a question, drop it in. I'll drop it into a Q&A, and I'll dive into that. Other than that, thank you so much for listening to the Mindful Muscle podcast. I got a really fun, might be a few weeks away, but got a really fun 4-part series that I'm doing with a fellow that started his own financial advising company, and we're doing a health and wealth series. So keep an eye out for that. We'll dive into a bunch of different topics and how they overlap to create the health and the wealth that you want, so that they don't hold you back in life. Rather, they amplify and allow you to do the things you want to do. But that is coming up. We'll continue to help you get better with the elements. Other than that, I'll help you, or I'll catch you next time on the Mindful Muscle podcast.